Park 2 with my husband Jason, and we're really excited to host, so thank you all for finding parking and figuring it all out and coming up. I'm Tara Massey. It's my husband Jason. We own Double A Photography, but what's even cooler is we started a film club this past March, and it's called JC Films Production Club, and it's part of the JC Films umbrella, so it's nationwide, actually worldwide now. They have like 30-something clubs around the world. So they make faith-based films, and really it just gives us access to some celebrities, and so we just filmed a film in October with Dean Cain, Superman in the 90s, and kind of how we operate is it's open to the community, and we have meetings on every second Thursday of the month on Zoom, because we have a lot of Charlotte and Charleston and Asheville people, and then we have in-person meetings every fourth Thursday of the month right here. So we'd love to have you, and you're welcome to just come and check it out. We're accepting scripts right now, and I want to say that right before our scripts meeting, but we're accepting screenplays and movie pitches right now. We'll be making a decision in March for our next film to be shot sometime this late spring, summer. So anyway, thank you all for coming.
Okay, hi. So nice to see all these new faces, friendly faces here. My name's Allison Merrick. I only relocated to this area about a year ago, so I'm still in culture shock. I'm from LA. Actually, I grew up in New York, and my family, though, was here, so I've relocated to be closer to them. So I went to NYU grad film school, and so I've done written and directed short films. Some of them that were sponsored by like Showtime and the Sloan Foundation. And then in LA, I ran the video department for an online toy magazine, and I did some story producing and associate producing for TV and features and short films. And I teach, I've taught at New York Film Academy, filmmaking, film directing, screenwriting, and now I'm teaching for Anaheim University, Akira Kurosawa School of Film. I've taught concepts of post-production, which is basically story-based, and then also screenwriting.
And most recent sighting is at TRIFF.
Yes, and my most recent local sighting is at Tryon International Film Festival. I've been involved with the festival from the beginning. I showed 2 short films the first 2 years, and then I taught a workshop where I met Ashley Crane. I don't know if any of you guys know her. She's very involved in this local community. And then, so she was my student in that first workshop, and then later on I actually met her and a couple of years ago, and we've been doing workshops since then. So she's the one who introduced me to Rhodes, so that's why I'm here, and very grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
My experience is far less prestigious. I have a Master's of Fine Arts and Creative Writing from Clemson, Master's of Script Writing from Regent University, online degree, and I do a lot of freelance writing. I do a lot of animated shorts with my twin sister Hannah on YouTube, and I do a lot of script doctoring. I've written quite a few features, shorts, web series, book adaptations, kind of a little bit of everything, and just really enjoy the challenge of finding what's wrong and fixing it, and finding the core theme and writing stories about people with problems, and that's me.
Script doctor.
Yeah.
Can you define that for us?
Someone who doctors a script. If your script is sick, if something's wrong with it, you figure out what it is, diagnose the symptoms. Oh, it's lacking a theme, this character arc isn't strong, and you take it and give it its medicine by strengthening that character arc, making the theme stronger, fixing the pacing, blah, blah, blah. And then you give it back to its family, all healthy and much better.
So I've got questions to lead off, but does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? I'd like to get to y'all's questions first. Okay, we'll come up with some as we go along, I'm sure. What are some common things you guys run into for errors or problems on scripts and stuff like that? So we'll start with you.
The most common is probably a passive main character. Because as writers, creators, artists, we tend to be introverts and we tend to be observers. And so, you write this character who's like, things are happening to him or her, and it's not that it's like interesting to you because it's this internal journey, and maybe it would make a great novel, but it's not going to make a great film because, as Rachel just said, your stories have to be about people with problems, and the worse problems they are, the more dramatic it is. We were just talking about how hard it is to get yourself seen in this world with everything, so much digital content. And I joke, well, that's the hero's journey, right? Because we all have this goal to get seen, but there's so many obstacles in the way. And so the most common error is to make the character too passive and to make their journey too easy. Like, it's hard. You get attached to your character, you love your character, and you don't want them to suffer, but you actually have to make them suffer. You have to make them go through what you're probably not willing to go through in your life, which is a lot of discomfort and a lot of disappointment and having to conquer huge obstacles. So that's the most common one I see. How about you?
Yeah, I've also heard that worded as you don't want the story happening at the character. You want it happening within them, around them, all of that stuff. But I suppose another really common one is even if you have a great character, you have great stuff happening, you don't know when to start. So the challenge that's common heard is getting someone to finish the first 10 pages and be excited through those first 10 pages, because when you send something somewhere and they have a stack of 50 scripts, that's the chance they give you, is intrigue them in that limited amount of time. So if you have a story about a kidnapping and the first 15 pages are about their family and their childhood and all this backstory that's not contributing to their conflict and their problem, and you're just winding around this information that never comes up again, I see it a lot. It's really sad because I know you know your character really well and you want everyone else to know them well, but you need to start it when things happen and just propel forth from there.
Cool. What are some, what was my question? Basic elements of the script and the process you guys follow? I know, like in Save the Cats, popular book by Screenwriter, he has the 15 beats and then the 40 scenes, and he plays off of that. Is that something you guys follow, or what are some other?
I think it's a good starting point. There's a lot, in the industry, there's kind of, it's a Save the Cat script. Look, you just turn to page 15 and, there's the inciting incident, or 12, page 12, there's the inciting incident. So, it's a good introduction, I think, to understanding what story beats are and how to break down the act structures. But it's a starting point, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think I really liked what you were talking about, the character, what's the character's inner journey. So if you want to go deeper into how to use act structure in a more organic way, Dara Mark's The Power of the Transformational Arc is a good book for that, where it's really not just about the things that are happening to the character, but what the character is undergoing internally, emotionally, to transform from one kind of person to the other kind of person that they need to be.
Yeah, or another way to cheat if you're young in the industry or can't afford that many books. If I know there's a movie similar to my idea as far as the tone, the pacing, the genre, I'll watch it and I'll take notes on when the key plot points happen, all right, minute 25. And then in my script, I kind of frame it around minute 25 is about page 25. So if I'm trying to write a psychological thriller and I'm mapping out the beats of Shutter Island, that gives me a starting point, not copying it, but a starting point to begin the bones of my structure. So it's not, stamped out of Save the Cat. It's a little more specific to what I need and what I'm looking for. And it's just another good cheat sheet for the beginning process of your outline journey.
Have you guys ever had to do script rework to make the script fit the budget?
I haven't had to do that. Although, I mean, when you're an independent filmmaker, you're always kind of producing as you're writing. And that's maybe another mistake sometimes that you're making as a beginning writer, is that you're trying to make it producible instead of writing out your full vision and then let the producer scale it back, or let it be scaled back in the rewrites. But no, I haven't had to write for a certain budget, except for the self-imposed one.
All of my projects have been made with love, aka cheap, so I haven't run into that problem either.
Well, I mean, I just read your short one you sent to me recently during the whole TV scene where all the different news channels are going by. I was thinking about ways to twist that would still do it, but change it a little bit so that it would be maybe cheaper. But
Yeah, no.
instead of going, I mean, obviously you're not going to fly to Africa, then fly to Indonesia, then fly to Europe. Or whatever.
Right, that's not
But,
super economical. But something I value in writing is if you're good enough to where someone can read a scene and understand its intent, they'll know, okay, you don't need a TV for that, you need information to be relayed. So if that's done through a radio or just newspapers or something else that's cheaper to get, as long as they're able to understand your tone, which if you can write like that, then the director will see it and understand it, and they can translate that to the actor, and through the whole process, you have people capturing your intent instead of just what's black and white on the page, and that helps everything be stronger. So if you're able to get that strength through it, then they'll see that, okay, it's not the TV or the prop that matters, it's what they're doing with it or what's on the screen, and how else can we tell that to fit a budget.
What version are you on that gets shot? Not the first version.
What? Oh, first drafts? No, like I can't remember which filmmaker says, but if your first draft doesn't make you throw up, you did it wrong. Because the first draft is basically, well, they sometimes call it like a vomit draft. It's like, just get the idea out, don't worry, just write it. And then it's a long process of rewriting, because you've probably heard this a million times, writing is rewriting, and especially in screenwriting, because it's so tight, it has to be so tight and so focused.
Up until the minute I'm told to stop, I'll keep rereading and fixing things.
Yeah.
So if they give me a week before production, I'm gonna keep writing. If it's the night before filming and they still let me make more copies, I'm gonna keep finding how to fix something, or suddenly I'll hate one scene and have to be told, stop it, we're doing it now, it doesn't matter. So yeah, as many as they give me.
So after you're done writing, what is your affiliation with the script throughout the rest of the process?
Well, it would depend. Like if it's something I'm going to direct, then I would start to break it down. And you try to put on different hats. Like you have a screenwriter's hat. Like we were just saying, like, do you write to the budget? Ideally, the screenwriter wouldn't have to write to the budget. You write your vision. If you're an indie filmmaker, you write your vision, and then you put on your other hat. Okay, now you're a producer hat. I can't afford to make this. I can't have a crane. I can't afford to have a cast of thousands and like extras. Like no. So, and then, as a director, you're going to put on a different hat, because now you have to break it down, break the script down. You have to start thinking about how you're going to direct the actors. So, and if you're doing it for somebody else, then, same thing. They're going to go through that whole process. So it's very regimented in terms of what kind of tasks get done when.
Do you guys know a little bit, I guess kind of on the same question, how the scripts get handled throughout the rest of the process? I guess that's kind of more what I was asking, because it gets handed to everybody.
Right. Okay. So do you want to talk about your process a little bit?
You probably have more experience.
Okay. Well, so let's say you have a script and you say, and no one's letting you rewrite it. So you're going into production. So the first thing you would do, well, you find your crew. So you need a DP, right? And you need, if you're not the writer, if you're not the director, then you need a director. They're all going to have a slightly different vision for it, especially even if you're writing and directing, your DP might have some ideas about how to shoot it that you haven't thought about. So that's going to be part of a collaboration. And same thing with your production designer. They're going to have ideas that maybe you didn't consider. That's going to not change the script, but they're all going to be breaking down the script according to their own department. And then, of course, like when you do the first read, or the actors might have some different way of saying something or interpreting it. But yeah, like the physical script, like let's say it's a locked script, not that there is such a thing. Each department goes through its own process of breaking it down so that they know how to get their particular job done. And that includes the actors. Like the actors often will cross out all your punctuation so that they aren't influenced by how you think it should sound, that they're like trying to find the subtext. As a director and as an actor, you have the script, but it's just a blueprint. Like you're looking for what's not being said, but what's really driving the story. So subtext is important to directors and actors, and actually to all of the creative team, because the production designer is going to be trying to elevate the subtext through their color choices and lighting choices, and DP also is going to be making certain selecting shots and camera movements based on trying to create more tension in the scene. So
yeah, I would just add to that, especially if you're running a very small project where it's not that big of a crew. As you're breaking things down, just make sure you do it beforehand. I've been on way too many sets where an actor or DP or grip or someone's friend who happens to be nearby decides right before you're filming to say, oh, what if they did this instead? Or what if the couch was the other way? And that is the worst time to have suggestions. Morning of, day before, whenever. Just throw out as many ideas as you want. Just get on the same page beforehand and then decide that your ideas are set. And if something amazing comes up and all of you are looking like, yeah, that's a good idea. Look at how that happens to be blowing or the light is right now. That's great. But if everyone's set and then you decide, oh, what if I come in with this attitude instead? That's just don't, please.
Rachel, for you, what would be an ideal situation for a script being used? Like getting a round table, getting rehearsals, being there for the whole process. Are these things that you guys want?
Yeah, table reads are fantastic, especially if it's like with your solid cast, because then they get a beat on how they're interacting with folks instead of just in their own bubble with their voice, not knowing how they'll play off with other people. If you get a chance to do that, that's good. It'll also help you hear your words in other people's voices. And sometimes even if you read your script out loud, which please do that, even if you read your script out loud, when the actor is reading it out loud, it still can just sound very different and weird and like, wow, humans don't use those words. There's a famous interview with Mark Hamill where he's talking about some of the dialogue in the original trilogy of Star Wars and how they helped it along. Just because if you're script writing, sometimes it seems normal, and then it's not. So those are super helpful. And then just if you're not leading the production, I would say when you're joining a team, of course, your script is your baby and you care about it a lot, but you need to be willing to let that baby get chopped up and moved around and turned into something that it wasn't, because you're part of a team now. And being that writer that has a lot of opinions is bordering on that nightmare situation where people remember that instead of the story, and then they don't want to work with you again. So being open to suggestions and taking the feedback with a grain of salt, because if an actor has an idea, that doesn't mean you have to change anything, that it's just an idea. And yeah, feedback is your friend, and just don't be like me and keep editing until the night before. Decide it's okay, 95% solutions are all right, and move on. That was rambling, but...
No, it's good.
Okay.
How common is it for the script writer to actually be part of the production company? It's like, my experience has been when you get your paycheck from selling the script, it's not yours anymore. It's gone. Somebody else is going to take it.
Yeah,
Will you find it?
you'll probably agree, but depending on the budget, you're lucky to even be on set. That's uncommon. It's an exchange of the writing is yours. That's my job, and I don't see any of the rest. I'm not involved in any of the rest. It might not even get made. I've just sold the papers, and that's it. Yeah.
So we get a lot of films that are based on true stories, and the scriptwriters like learning how to do a true story, and it's beautiful, and it's really worth telling. But it spans over 30 years, and it's very difficult. And she wanted to be on set because she's protecting her story, and I understand that. How would you approach that? Like, it was something where we had to turn the project down because we were like, sorry, you're a bit much, we couldn't really take on that.
I think you just answered your own question. Like, probably that writer isn't somebody you could work with, right? Because it's not, if it's not a story you can tell on film the way as is, then, and then the writer's not open to adapting, like understanding this is a specific kind of animal, screenplay is not a memoir. So if they can't grasp that and aren't willing to work with you, then that's not going to happen.
I have a little bit of experience with this, and on many shows, they'll keep the writing team on because in the long run, to have them there to solve problems like budgetary concerns. Like, you were saying, everybody takes a look at the script and breaks it down and gleans from it what they need. I mean, the groups and electricians are going, is this a day scene or a night scene? And quite often, whether it's an actor who has a different interpretation or the producers who are going, we don't have the money for this. They're constantly going back and having people rewrite. I mean, I do show, they do scripts in colors. Like, white's the first one you get. I've been on shows where we've seen white 3 times. So, and that's like 12 colors deep. So they're constantly revising stuff because you might have a location that falls through that was script specific. Oh, what are we going to do now? Well, we're going to write this differently. Or it rained that day and we embraced that, but now that's going to lead into something else a little bit further down the line. Bring the writers back in so they can fix that problem. So it's not uncommon to have writers on throughout the entire process. And usually they're under the tent with all the producers and stuff, yucking it up, talking about the reservations for dinner they had before.
That's mostly for episodic.
Well, it's features can be that way, episodic certainly. And I know you guys are looking at this in terms of independent projects, but I've done a bunch of those as well. And it's still not uncommon for the writer and the director and everybody to be going back over things, going, how do we make this fit given what we've got? In fact, in the independent world, it's even more critical because you guys are constantly having curveballs thrown at you. Your budgets are finite. You can only ask your friends help so many times and you got to start paying people. So money is an issue. And filmmaking is the art of compromise. Right. When it boils, that's what it boils down to.
Well, and as you're saying within the independent world, like there's an emotional investment that maybe isn't there always in the big budget world because it's like it's your baby. So yeah, the writers might stay. There might not be any money in it for them. They might not be being paid to be there. They're not being paid extra, but like this is a collaboration. This is an important project to them. So they're
You're going to be there to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
A question. It sounds like you have a lot of moving parts to different scenarios. And so when you talk about one scenario, if you're in control of your script and you're part of the process moving through, it's a completely different environment versus if you just sell your script straight out. But I have a question about something you just brought up, is when you have a script that is being changed as your production is evolving, how do you manage the revisions or the controls that is out through all of the actors and the directors and the production people as far as making sure that everybody has matching scripts that are the most current?
That's the office's
Yeah.
And the assistant director's department is going to sit there and manage that flow of information, but usually that goes through the office. And these days it's all electronic.
Is everybody dumping, like shredding, all paper gets shredded and then we have a whole new printout every time or is it like sectionally done?
Through
Based on
size.
Well, there's these things called strips that the AD department uses. And they physically move them around in this freakish little book. So they do move pages around, but these days they'll send you whatever color it is, salmon, blue, revised script, and then they'll just send you a whole script out for what it is, because it's electronic. So, you archive the last one, because again, like I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh, well, we had this budgeted for whatever it is they want to do, and they change their minds. Well, I need to make sure I know where that, like, cancel all of that preparatory work that we did and free up those monies. And I mean, everybody has that kind of responsibility if you're a department head, whether it's wardrobe or art department.
Right. You as a writer wouldn't be responsible for sending out your script to anyone except for like the director or the AD. And they take care of distributing it. It's very hierarchical, like a film set's very
It's a
hierarchical.
good time to mention sides as well. Sides are just the day script for the day, just in small print that you guys can keep on yourself, and everyone pretty much should have one, because they're like, oh, where are we at? And if you jump up and say, this is where we're at.
So sides are just the pages that you're shooting that day.
Yeah.
Or, if you're auditioning, then they just give you the scene that you're auditioning with. So you don't, everyone doesn't have to carry around a whole script the whole time. And also, this gentleman was saying, it's digital, so people sometimes have the slides on their phones too. And there'll be printouts. Usually there'll be printouts on the set. But yeah, the writer doesn't have to. The writer has to do the revisions, but they don't have to distribute anything or worry about who gets what, because that's another department altogether.
Any other questions?
Do you guys both have a passion, things that you wrote, without giving it away, even if it's just genre or something that you guys want to make, your dream project, your dream budget?
Oh yeah, I'm working on 2
Okay.
dream projects right
Can you
now.
say
One
anything
for
about giving it away?
TV.
I mean,
Oh no, they're both in
Okay.
development, so
okay,
it's
cool,
just whatever.
No,
One's a feature and one's a series, so that's all I'll say right now. I have a little team that we're pitching the series with, and then the feature is the typical NYU independent writing, directing feature. We'll see. It's just, how about you? What do you?
As far as dream genre and all that, it absolutely depends. I find something I want them to go through. If that, has to take place on a spaceship or in a desert, I figure that out, but something strikes me about, this sad little man that needs someone to care about them, and I structure the rest around that, and maybe that ends up a romance, maybe it ends up somewhere else, I don't know, but I'm also just way too young in my journey to have my magnum opus in mind, so that's not, nah. All of my precious babies could be sold right now. I don't have anything where it's this has to be made just so, not yet.
What's your process for pitching a completed script to potential buyer or investor?
I haven't done it yet, so I've had sponsors for my short scripts, and so it was a sort of basically the script and the pitch deck, and I didn't have to do a verbal pitch, but that's what we're working on now is a verbal pitch, so, and it's the verbal pitch is very much like the pitch deck where you have a log line, you have basically the theme, what it's like, what the format is, what the genre is, why you need to tell this story, why it's important to tell this story now, why you're the only person who can tell this particular story, and then break down the characters and give a breakdown of the the story, if it's a TV series, and you would break down quickly, like within a few minutes, the first season, and then maybe gave a hint of what the next season would be, and that's kind of it for the pitch.
Have you guys worked with other writers on a script?
Well, when I was doing sort of reality type TV, I was working with the producer, the field producer. So we would break down the stories together. Like we'd interview the characters that we were following, and looking what's going on in their lives. Where's the drama? You're always looking for the problems, and things that's maybe could have some conflict. This wasn't one of those reality shows where they produce the conflicts and told, it's not. Some reality shows are totally completely set up. This was actually like following real people in a very artificial journey, but yeah, so we were working together. We were colleagues from film school, so we were all very much on the same page about how to work together. And so we would, break down the beats of where we saw the storylines that seemed to have the most potential, and break those down together. I love collaborating. Well, you must, because you collaborate with your sister all the time, right?
Yeah, I write everything with her, and I also have a writing partner in LA that we have a little duo name we credit under, and for both it's the same sort of process where we'll trade an outline back and forth. Like he'll add some beats, I'll add some beats, we'll workshop it till we're happy with that. Then he'll write a scene, I'll write a scene. Maybe one of us will finish a full draft and the other will go through with a lot of edits and recommendations, and we just trade until we're pretty happy, then show it to someone else who says these are the things that suck, and we'll go back and trade again. And it can be very fun, very challenging sometimes when you're trying to tell someone you care about and you respect that, hey, this whole conversation is not working, how can we fix it? But when you find someone you really trust, it's very easy to have a kind of fluid, creative process and just critique each other, and it's only elevating everyone involved when you get that kind of intermingled feedback going on.
How do you determine you're staying on the vibe of the story when you have different writers in different places of the story?
You have a conversation beforehand. You set up your goals, and you talk about, hey, this is the character, here's what he needs to go through. We would generally like it to happen through this and that planned interaction. I've heard two different terms, like you're either an outline writer or like a wandering writer. So you either plan everything or you make it up as you go loosely. I cannot do wandering. And if you're working with someone, I feel like that would be impossible. You have to plan and organize and talk about what your expectations are, or else I don't know how you would get anything done.
I have a two-part question for you guys. What are your sources for sending it out to get reviews, to get good feedback from people? And then two, after that, to get the rating, do you guys use Coverfly, Stage 32, or Screencraft, or any of those places?
No. With me, it's mostly my NYU colleagues. We have writers groups, and also like producers that I work with. So, the writers groups are great because, as Rachel was just saying, you learn to trust each other, and because you have to criticize. Like it's great to support each other, but we're not here to like make everyone feel good, like heal their wounds for them. You want them to achieve their goals, right? So you have to give sometimes some really harsh feedback or critical feedback, but everybody who's in this has to be willing to basically learn. You always think you're being clear, you think your intention is clear, but if somebody else isn't getting it, then you need to do more work. So it's really you can't just write in a vacuum, especially with screenplays. You need to get feedback, and you need to be able to listen to it. Not just what people think, but sort of because sometimes people they don't like something about the script. But what they're really saying is not really maybe the thing that happened in the script, but it's actually like they're not feeling that the goal is strong enough. They don't know that if, maybe if they're another writer, they've gone through a process like that. But if you're asking just like your friends for feedback, even if they don't understand what the character is supposed to go through and how a screenplay is structured, you can kind of sense from what they're saying that, oh, maybe my character's goal isn't strong enough, or maybe I don't have a worthy antagonist, or maybe my character is too passive because, oh, I was getting bored, blah, 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 blah. That means your character's passive. The character's not doing enough. So, you need to get feedback because that's the way you're going to make the script stronger. And that's why it goes through so many stages, too, because, you have to, even when you think you're being clear about something, you're not. So, you don't know whether you are or not until you hear somebody else tell your story to you. And if they're not telling you the story that you intended to write, then you have some more work to do.
Mm-hmm. And friends who are also writers are much more affordable than submitting it to the Blacklist or Coverfly or anything like that. And if you don't have any friends, just find local festivals. When you see something that's really cool, go tell them, hey, that thing you made is really cool. Can I be involved in the next thing? If you're writing, can I look at it and give notes? Because I'm a writer. Do you want to look at anything? Yeah, or Film Bar, yeah. Be right here. And when someone asks an interesting question, afterwards say, hey, I liked your question. And then you start a conversation. But yeah, it's really nice just to be able to email someone you like and say, hey, can you read this over the next couple of weekends and tell me what you think? Because writers, like she said, will be able to say, oh, it's because the goal wasn't strong enough, instead of, your cousin saying, well, it was good. Okay, that doesn't help. It's nice to hear, but that's not, critique that helps you build on something.
If you have a unique story and you're passing it around, you ever worry about protecting your intellectual property?
I was just about to ask my NDAs.
I was gonna ask that too.
Like there are only a few stories out there, right? 7. What do they say? It's like 7 stories in the world. But your story is it's how you tell it that's going to be unique. Like ideas aren't even copyrightable because so many people can have the same ideas all at once. And some people worry about it, but really NDAs are for the production companies, because what happens for them is that you submit an idea about a man who thinks he's a Coke bottle, right? And then they pass on that. And then 5 years from now, they write a script about a man who thinks he's a Coke bottle. It's like, man, they stole my idea. And then you go to sue them, right? That's why you've signed the NDA, so you don't have that right. Because so many people can come up with that particular idea, or, what if we're really just all in this video game and someone else is in control? So a lot of people had that idea, and then it's kind of like the Matrix, but it's not. Anyway, so you don't make other people, as a writer, you generally don't have people sign NDAs. In fact, it's kind of considered amateurish to do that, because then you feel like, it's like, oh, someone's going to steal my idea. It's so good. Like it's your take on that idea that's going to make it unique. And
that's one of the earliest things one of my favorite film professors told me was like, you'll hate hearing it, but it's very amateurish to say, this is my precious gem, whisper about it in a dark room, don't spread this around, because like she said, it's the idea. And there are so many real life examples where people have just by coincidence produced almost the exact same thing separate of each other. And it seems like, oh, one must have been copied, but it was just that 2 people had the same idea at the same time, titled it almost the same thing. It turned out almost the same, but it was just 2 different people. One made it in America, one made it in Europe, whatever the case. It's just about the execution. Like, you can get the best script in the world, but if you make it poorly, nobody cares. And someone can have the worst idea in the world, but have enough budget to put it in movie theaters and make it AAA anyway. And it happens every day, and it's super sad. But preserving your idea isn't going to be what makes the difference. It's all about the team you build and the resources you're able to do to present it the best way possible.
I've been down that road, and my first screenplay I submitted to, I thought, a friend. He sent me back a note saying, junk, it's no good at all. All he did was change the title page, sold it to Disney, they produced it, and I was out. So while copyright gives you some protection on that, what I do is, before I send a script out to anybody, I print a copy of the version that they're gonna get, I put it in an envelope, I mail it to myself, and put it in the file. Don't ever break the seal on it. That's called a poor man's copyright. When it's ready to look for, to give to an agent, or if you're gonna pitch it yourself, then register it with U.S. Copyright Office. It doesn't always work, but it gives you a whole lot more protection than what it would if you did
Right, and it's not expensive. It's like $20,
$20.
something like that. Or in WGA also, you can register at WGA.
How concerned do you become with managing social media and, kind of keeping your idea in check, not letting it out ahead of the release of your project?
I haven't had that problem. So.
Okay.
Just don't put it on social media.
You just don't talk about them. You say, hey, I have something cool coming up, and just leave it at that.
And even during the production of the thing, I mean, are you concerned that people might be uploading snippets of
usually
production and
that's-
things like that, or do you have them sign non-disclosure agreements? So that they
Yeah,
don't
you're
do
not
that?
supposed. Like, for instance, you're not supposed to. On some sets, you can't even bring your cell phone. They collect cell phones because they don't want anyone, especially if there's celebrities involved. They don't want anyone taking photos or, sending out event. Yeah, you're not supposed. It's like you're not supposed to do that. So.
I've had everybody, anytime I've been on a set with a major production on it, before you go out to the set, you've signed an NDA, and it is pretty binding.
Right.
You guys ever have a finished script and feel like, man, I just need a video? Because I'm sitting here with gear, like, man, I just need a script.
You usually need more than a videographer.
No, it's kind of an ideal
Videographer with
situation.
a budget. A
Yeah.
videographer with a trust fund. That's what I want.
There's just a whole production team sitting there like, man, if only I had Rachel's story, I'd be set, I could go. That's what y'all hope for, but
So here's the question. So, as writers, let's say someone comes to you, we got this movie, we want to write the script, but we really want this actor over here to play this part. Right? We pretty much contracted him. How do you approach that? Do you write the script based on the character, or you just write the script?
Oh, I've never been in that situation, but I would say, okay, if they're paying me.
I actually am currently doing that, where they have two actors for the main two roles. They've basically told me who they are, but just have no interest in showing me and having that be a part of the story, because they pulled those actors because they're good actors and because they know this story will work well with them. So they're not interested in me catering it to them so much as they know with this type of role, that actor will cater to it well.
So you don't necessarily write based on what their capabilities are, what their acting style is, what they're doing, or you just, again, write the lines based on what you think the story should be.
Yeah, I focus on getting just the important arcs and all that. If they want the actor to take more of a lead, that's their responsibility afterwards.
That's a casting director promotes most of the time, doesn't it? You know what you find. Your casting director is going to search out the actors that most likely will fit that part?
Usually, that's usually the process, yeah. But apparently not in this particular case.
For this particular case, the casting director is also the director, so he just knew they're pulling them as part of the pitch going forward. For the things like for the animation projects we do where I cast it myself, it depends. I'll either know someone I've worked with that fits it well, and I might cater some lines to them, but again, they'll fit it well because I know they can adapt and I know the character needs to do this. If I was writing a Nicolas Cage movie and just wanted it to be Nicolas Cage, what's the point of writing a character at that point? It's just an actor movie instead of a character movie.
One more question.
What are some like I suggest tools for like a beginner screenplay writer? What are some tools? Tools?
Well, I think, like Rhodes is saying, read Save the Cat. Just get familiar with story structure. Read some of the other books and you don't have to buy them. You can go to the library, or you can just download free copies because everybody steals everything on the internet. Then Robert McKee's story, Dara Mark's Transformational Arc. Listen to Film Courage, which is a great series of interviews with writers. One of my favorite writing teachers is Corey Mandel. And then he's on Film Courage a lot. And then the BBC has a bunch of podcasts with screenwriters when they talk about their process.
And read scripts.
Yeah, read a lot
Find
of
scripts and read them.
Because they're not novels.
Like you're analyzing movies as well. So.
Yeah, and I love her idea of, just creating a beat sheet based on a film that you like to sort of give yourself a map. It really does help. So you see how they did it. Like, why reinvent the wheel when there's so many wheels out there, right? So,
or as far as reading them, it was just very interesting to me to see just on the page how in Pirates of the Caribbean they introduce a character like Jack Sparrow in one sentence. And, it's this big personality, and on screen, this just massive entrance with the aesthetic and the way he moves and everything. And in the script, it just says something like, enter Jack Sparrow. He is the man for whom the term swashbuckler was coined. And that's all they need to say. And there's just these really efficient, cool tools that you find in unexpected pages that then make you think more about, okay, next time I'm introducing a character that's supposed to have a lot of punch and personality, instead of a paragraph about how cool and unique they are, how can I just, slam in one sentence the essence I want people to take away from this?
that's actually a great way to bring us back full circle, because when Rhodes was saying, like, what are the common mistakes that people make? Overwriting, right? And like, not just backstory, not just writing the whole backstory so that the story doesn't even start until the movie's over, but too many descriptions. Like nobody needs to know how beautiful the sunset is. You need to get into the heart of the action as soon as possible and make things as efficient as you can, because like she said, that's the mark of a professional screenplay. It's a blueprint. It's not a novel. It's not an interior feeling. It's what the audience sees. So you're writing what the audience is going to see and hear, not what the characters are feeling inside.
Sounds like you're suggesting that in some portions of the writing versus the production or directing process, there's a balance between not giving too much information or description and allowing the creative process to evolve on set at times, or maybe some pre-production planning based on their interpretation of your script versus you innovating all the details.
Yeah, you're not going to be art directing and directing. Oh yeah, the other thing. Oh, especially writers who are also directors, they'll start like writing and we swoop down on a crane, and then we zero in. Like, no, we don't write the stage directions. That's later. Like, you don't even know that that's the way you're going to shoot it. You don't know yet.
Keep the cranes in the light.
That's for somebody else.
Wardrobe is its entire job. Let them do that. Unless it's important to the plot, the color of your character's tennis shoes, just say that they're stylish and move on. And wardrobe will take it and do their job, and you just do yours without, outlining every piece of the outfit and all that jazz.
Yeah, your job is to create the character's journey. What does the character want? How are they going to get it? What's in their way? And keep it dramatic and suspenseful, which means,
So if you have an intentional symbology, like lots of very famous films have very significant intentional color schemes, symbols that represent certain shapes that are supposed to do certain mental trigger. So do you guys not, when you're screenwriting, do you not have some intentional
Motifs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even, something that could be spiritual, it could be a theme, but it's all psychological.
Well, that's subtext.
Right.
So you're writing, you're writing the structure of the story, but there's subtext to what you're doing. So some of it's going to be implied, but you don't have to write it all out. Like, you're not going to say, like, decide that, unless there's a real good reason for it, like the character is always dressed in green or something like that. It's just not going to be, that's not as important as you're telling this story, and there are going to be other elements of the filmmaking process that elevate that. Maybe you as a director will be, choosing a color scheme but you want to be very efficient in what you're writing.
Right. Usually a motif like that would come up if a director sees your subtext, gives directions to wardrobe, and says, okay, this woman is progressively more jealous. We'll change her wardrobe progressively more green to reflect that in the subconscious, because green aligns a lot with jealousy and envy emotionally. But you don't really write that. That's something they'll pick up on, and they'll build into it through production and through their creative side of it.
So, last question for you guys. What are up to 3 things that you wish younger self would know now? It doesn't have to just be one, but any tips and tricks or anything that you guys wish you knew back then that would got you to where you are faster?
Do more. Do more stuff. I don't know.
Festivals are your friends. Don't be scared that just because you feel like your project is small and cheap, it won't fit anywhere, because there's festivals for everything, and there will be one for yours. You don't need money to make something. Like my sister and I, our animation copies retro animation because retro animation is very cheap. So we find a style we can do affordably, and we make our own stuff. We don't need to do like 24 frame per second high quality animation to tell a story. We just need a person talking and moving around, and that conveys what they feel and all that. So you don't need money, and you do need friends. Yeah. It's very easy to have an ego in this field, but don't. If you do, drop it very quickly, because that's what people will remember when they work with you. And it's important to leave very good impressions. Like Chad is almost everybody's best friend because of the impression he leaves on a set. And making those friendships is going to be way more valuable than like dumping money, carving your way into parties at Hollywood, and just joining one more ego in a crowd of egos, all telling yourselves, I'm great, I can do this myself, I don't need people. Because you do need people. Everyone needs people, especially on very low budgets. People are your biggest resource.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for talking to us.